Hello everyone, my name is Charles Pittman. I'm the Product Marketing Manager for Genetech Add-ons, and welcome to our Intrusion Monitoring Update for Security Center 5.8. So we're going to be doing a brief overview of what's been going on in intrusion monitoring since 5.7, and taking a little bit of a look at some of the commercial information that you'll need to know for quoting and selling intrusion going forward. So what's in this video capsule? So this has been intended to give you a quick overview of what's been happening and get you up to speed, as well as ensure that you're aware of anything that you might have questions about so you can loop back to us. We're going to start with what's changed in intrusion since Security Center 5.7, right? What have we been working on? From there, we'll jump directly into the software to take a look at what does intrusion look like in 5.8? How do you interact with it? How does it behave in relationship to the rest of Security Center? We will introduce the new pricing model that we're bringing in for 5.8, and we'll also give you a little bit of context as to why we made that choice and why we're moving that way. And finally, we're going to close out with a look at the competition. Mainly from a pricing perspective, what does this new pricing model mean in terms of our competitiveness? How do we measure up compared to some of the access control vendors who also sell intrusion monitoring? So let's start with a look at what's changed. Well, we're really moving towards centralizing monitoring with intrusion, right? Bringing this together with video, access control, and ALPR in a way that they are deeply integrated so you can spend more time working on what you need to accomplish and less time task switching. What does this mean? Well, we've moved towards a map-centric view. So this is something we've been working on with our core products in the last few years. We're bringing that to intrusion. We have been working on centralizing cardholder management, so ensuring that you spend as much time in Security Center and not going back into the intrusion panel to manage cardholders, to give rights, create exceptions, things like that, but rather do that from Config Tool, where you're already managing your access control credentials if you're using Synergis. And in a lot of ways, tying those credentials together. And finally, we've also brought in new specialized tiles and icons that allow you to better see what's happening with your intrusion system at a glance within Security Center. We've also expanded the manufacturers that we're working with. We've effectively doubled them in the last few years. We now work with DSC, Honeywell, Vanderbilt, DMP, UTC, and Bosch. For an exhaustive list of the types of panels that we support within Security Center, you can find that in the intrusion monitoring feature note that's available on genetech.com. Now, let's jump directly into the demo itself. All right, so as mentioned, one of the big changes that we've seen moving from 5.7 to 5.8 is the amount of we can do within maps. Right? We want to, as with all of the other product lines, provide you with more intuitive information, a better way of interacting with your intrusion system, and maps is how we see that happening. So we're going to open up the maps task. So for today, we're going to take the example of a nice, quaint little office building. On the first floor, they are protected by an intrusion system. They've got their system nicely laid out here. Purple for offices, some little fuchsia meeting rooms, a nice teal coffee break room, and the blue area surrounding it is the hallways, common areas that are covered by the intrusion area. You'll see that we've got some traditional security center entities like some cameras over here, but we've also got some newer icons here. These are our intrusion inputs. And what we've been able to do in Security Center 5.8 is attribute them specialized icons that reflect their role in the system. For instance, here we've got a glass break sensor, we have a motion detection sensor, and a fire alarm sensor. So these inputs coming in are now reflective of their actual purpose within the system, meaning that at a glance you can see not only which input was triggered to cause an alarm, but also what type of device it is without going to investigate too far. So you can tell this was started by a motion detector, this was started by a glass breaking. You can notice that there's a little green circle on them. So these little pastilles are what will tell you the current status of that input. Okay? Green being that it is in a normal status, red will be an active status, and there's a yellow for a troubled status if there's some issue with that sensor. You can left click on them to get information about that sensor. So the name, its status, is it an alarm, is it bypassed, and the area it belongs to. You can also right click to bypass that input should there be something wrong with it. So there's also the specialized intrusion tile, which you can see here. The intrusion tile will cycle through the tile which gives it status itself and any video associated to that area. If you have multiple cameras associated to the area, it'll cycle through all of them as well. But let's say you don't want to do that. You want to keep it pinned on the intrusion tile itself. You can bring up another tile and bring that over here as well and pin that and fix it on the camera. So you get your all-over view of the video of the area alongside the tile itself. So let's go through an example. The office is closing up for the evening. So we can go and arm the area. We can either do master arm, so arm everything within the area, or just the perimeter. And we can decide to do that as an instant, like right now, or we can add a delay. For instance, if we know that it's going to take some people a little while to vacate the premises, we can give them the delay. Or if I need to leave the premises, I need a little bit of time, I can do that as well. We're going to do it right now. So you'll notice that the intrusion area has turned green in consequence. What we're going to look at now is what happens when an actual intrusion occurs. So you'll notice that the glass break sensor the pastille has gone red. Someone broke the glass, they've entered the premises. All right, so let's go and explore what's going on there. And actually, we'll open this up in the monitoring task to see who is entered. This is where the culprit came in. Yeah, we can see her arriving here. So what we're going to do is we're going to go and track that back a little bit so we can record the entire incident and see where she went, thanks to visual tracking, and what her goal was. So we see her entering here. See, she went down this corridor. You can see her walking along. She's taking this corridor here. And she arrives over here. And we found out what she was going for. Oh, and she's leaving now. So we can stop that instant recording, and we'll be able to export this. So we're going to go back to maps. Oh, and now we can see that motion detector sensor has been triggered as well. So we can go and see what's going on there. It's probably her. And we can see her leaving the premises. Now, since she's gone, you can see that the input has turned green again, but you'll notice that the halo is still going. And this is because despite the motion no longer being there, so the input is returned to normal, we have a persistence to the alarm so that once it's triggered, we can tell which input triggered that alarm and go back and figure out what was happening with it. If we go back to the intrusion tile, we can also see that all of the relevant inputs that are in any kind of abnormal state, so in this case, one of them which is in an active state, and both of which are an alarm, you can see that they are still posted there so that you're aware of what went on in that area and what needs to be resolved. So, now that we know that the intruder's gone, we can acknowledge that alarm, which returns everything to green. And knowing that the glass is broken, so the glass break sensor is still active, we can go ahead and bypass that so that it doesn't trigger another alarm until it's fixed and we can bring it back online. You'll notice that the icon is X'd out when it's bypassed to give you a visual confirmation. So that's pretty much how intrusion comes into mapping task, and you can see how it's deeply integrated to video. It's very easy to hop back and forth between intrusion capabilities, video capabilities, incident monitoring, and all of that. And the last thing I want to show you is one of the key aspects of 5.8, which is dashboards. So we put together a little intrusion monitoring dashboard just to show how we can really leverage even the latest features of Security Center. So here you can see we put together a little dashboard. It's pretty straightforward, but it brings in our current state and everything related to the intrusion monitoring tile, the video tile that's associated to that intrusion area, and we have a report that shows all of the different activities that have been going on in this area. In this case, it's a pie chart that shows you which are the most frequent ones. You can see here, entry delay seems to be something that's happening a lot. We can also unselect certain ones if we don't want to know about them. So, very infrequently did an input go into trouble? Maybe we're not as interested in that. We can unhighlight it and it leaves. So it's a dynamic dashboard. It will be updated as these events come in. What's also interesting about this is you could easily also put in, say, a graph that tells you when certain kinds of alarms occur within the system over time, so you can see what occurs, when it occurs, and all of this information can be either exported or printed, so it can be sent to, say, supervisors or to people who are monitoring a deployment, so you can show them what has occurred and what the situation is, as well as demonstrate the value of the system as it's set up. So, moving on from the demo, in light of all of this evolution, there were some changes that needed to be made to the pricing structure. We've really brought a lot of innovation into the intrusion system, and over time, this has led to certain challenges. Firstly, there's been a bit of a pricing structure drift. Over time, as we introduced newer intrusion plugins, newer manufacturers, we changed the prices based on regionality and based on functionality. So as newer plugins came in that could do more than older ones, we adapted the price in consequence. But this led to a lack of consistency. It also meant that we had both new and old rate floating around, and it became fairly complex for our sales team and you, our channel partners, to quote. Secondly, it was a per device only pricing, and per device pricings don't necessarily scale very well. This led to a perception of us as uncompetitive compared to certain other vendors. We also started getting market discrepancies between particularly regions, where one region would be more expensive than another, and we started getting a lot of discount requests in light of this, in order to try and make us more competitive in certain scenarios, and just in general make the price reflect the market. And finally, all of this led to a bit of an unwieldy part structure. There were just too many part numbers, with 8 manufacturers to support, and this led to a cumulative 96 Advantage parts. This led to a lot of confusion amongst our teams as to how exactly to quote and how to get the right parts to make sure that the solution fit the bill. And I want to mention that this is not only a challenge that was faced for Intrusion, we were also facing it for key cabinets. And so we've decided to address the pricing for both of those integrations. So we took each of these challenges in turn and proposed a resolution to them. To address pricing structure, we are introducing a single price across manufacturers. So no matter which manufacturer you're purchasing from, it'll be a single price for all Intrusion integrations and a single price for all key cabinets. To address the per device problem, we decided to introduce a base price so that we have an introductory price level for single panel or single cabinet systems, and lower the per device price as well as make it a single one across the board. And then finally, to address the unwieldy price structure, we've consolidated the Advantage parts so that there's now a single set of part numbers for Advantage for each the Intrusion panels and for the key cabinets, making it a lot simpler to quote. And this leads us to our new pricing structure. A base price, a per panel or per cabinet price, which is tied to the manufacturer, but it is always the same price no matter which manufacturer you choose, and an Advantage price. This makes it very simple to quote, and in addition, it brings it in line with the pricing structure that you're familiar with from Omnicast, Synergis, and AutoView. So a couple additional notes on this pricing structure. First, this price is introduced with 5.8, so it's very much tied to the 5.8 release, but customers who are on 5.7 or earlier, and or customers who already have quotes out, will have the option of using the new pricing, but will be able to use the existing pricing if they so choose. They can take the one that is most beneficial to them. So for smaller customers, they might want to stick with the quote that they already have, but if they're a larger system, they may choose to go with the lower per panel price that will be advantageous to them. Existing systems, so those that already have cabinets or panels, will only pay for new cabinets and panels when they decide to expand. Even if they don't have a base part at the moment, that base part will be provided to them free of charge. We don't want to be going back to our customers that already have these systems and double charging them. And finally, new customers and systems will have the new pricing structure applied to them. Of course, if there are any concerns about this going forward, if you have customers who may not have had a quote emitted to them quite yet, but are still fairly far along in the process, feel free to reach out to us. The email address to contact is listed at the end of this video capsule. It would be our pleasure to address those concerns with you. So, what does this pricing mean on a competitive side? Well, we looked at that from two ways, both the number of panels that a customer might have and the number of years that they have them. So if you look at number of panels in 1 year, you'll see that we start out at 1 panel with the new pricing, fairly similar to some of our major competitors. And you can see that we're just above a few of them and significantly below one like Secure. But as you add more panels, that landscape changes significantly. You can see at 3, Even AMAG is pulled ahead of us. We're a little bit ahead of Linnell, but we're still within a reasonable range. And then as you go to 5, we pull up into the Secure range, and you can see we're a little bit ahead of, say, Linnell, but it's still overall in the same ballpark. And most of our deals are within 5. That landscape changes even more when you look at the pricing over time. So the one caveat here is that as we were going through this, the pricing information that we had did not include any recurring fees for AMAG. But even at that, as you go through the years, you'll see that our price stays fairly stable. It's a very small advantage price for on each panel. And our competitors, on the other hand, for instance, Secure, their price mounts very quickly because they make the lion's share of their revenue on the recurring revenue that comes from these intrusion systems. In fact, their yearly cost is roughly 50% of their base cost. So that racks up fairly quickly, as you can see here. But on the whole, for both sides, you can see that we do have a very robust, competitive pricing structure here. We're almost the same or quite a bit below our competitors on most of these metrics. And this has to be taken alongside the fact that this integration is significantly deeper than most of these access control manufacturers provide, especially when you're looking at integration to video access control. So in summary, as mentioned, we're introducing these 3 parts. There have been major rehauls since Security Center 5.7 when it comes to intrusion in particular. And because of a few of those changes, we decided to restructure the pricing. Those parts are going to be an intrusion base or a key management base. That base part is a single generic part. So regardless of manufacturer, it's the same part. You only need 1 per system. And as mentioned, if your clients already have a system using key management or intrusion, that base part will be offered to them free of charge. After that, there is an intrusion panel or key cabinet part. So this is 1 per panel or cabinet. These are specific to the manufacturers that they're using, but the price is the same regardless to provide significant consistency. And so you'll know, even if you decide to switch between manufacturers, that pricing does not change. And finally, there is a single generic part per panel or per cabinet for Genetec Advantage. You again need 1 per device, but you won't have to mess around with what manufacturer you're with at that point. So, thank you very much for attending this short video capsule. We hope that you found that informative, and if you do have any questions or concerns, please feel free to reach out to us at pluginscommercial@genetec.com. That will relay you to myself, Louis René, the product manager for the team, and the commercial team at large, so we can get back to you as soon as possible and address any concerns you may have. Thank you again for listening,